coffee, big cup, and hello. Welcome back to another episode of the Gilmore Way Podcast. I'm Kate.
And I am Laura. And this is part 2 of our series on comparing the similarities and differences of two of our, I think, conjointly favorite shows right now, Ted Lasso and Gilmore Girls. Last week, we went into the similarities of the show from a little bit of like a heavier standpoint, how they align within relationships, within political issues, within mental health issues, things like that. Go back and check out that episode. This week, we're continuing on with that discussion, but just going a little bit more episode by episode, talking about a little bit more of the fun and lighthearted elements to the show, favorite character moments, favorite quotes, pop culture references, things like that. So we hope you enjoyed this episode as well. And please just do all of those YouTube-y things for us. Please like this video, subscribe to our channel. It's one click below, and it really just helps us out.
Yep. Yeah, last week, if you didn't watch that, definitely go back and do that. We did sort of like a higher level look at the big similarities and differences. This week, we're going nitty gritty, but that entails spoilers. So if you're not here for that, go binge either or both of these shows, whichever you haven't seen, because they're both worth your time, and come back toot sweet when you're done, because we're gonna have some fun here. A couple other disclaimers. There might be some profanity because, you know, especially if we're directly quoting the show, there's a lot of profanity used. I'm a bit of a foul mouth. It's fine. We're all adults here, right? And if you have children in the room, earmuffs. And last but not least, I recently got a new fur godchild named Vincent. Not sure which, like, you're Italian, so like Vincenzo?
He'll probably answer to any of them.
He'll probably answer to, hey, dipshit, but like...
Speaking of... oh, gosh, he's on furniture right now, and I can't...
Classic cats.
It's fine, we're just gonna... This is what you get. If it fits, he sits. And I'm just seeing stuff right now over there that I will deal with later.
I have seen your apartment. He will fit a lot of places. So he will sit a lot of places. Anyway, cat spoiler warnings. If you hear cats or see cats, she has a cat now. The newest member of our Gilmore Way family is furry and ginger. Just like his auntie.
Yep, indeed.
So, sorry, not sorry if you hear cat bells, toys, meows, things falling or breaking.
Yeah. Any or all of those things are fair play right now.
Yeah. So, let's get into this with, I was thinking, let's just sort of like go through bit by bit, episode by episode, and like actually make some comparisons on the pop culture references of the shows, which both shows lean very heavily into pop culture as part of the way they speak, the way they write the dialogue. It's actually quite similar. And I'm like, hey, Ted Lasso writers, are you Gilmore fans? Because this is like, it feels straight out of that playbook. So, and there's actually a lot of similar references, not just the way they use them, but some similar references. The first of which being in the pilot. It's a lot more subtle than in Gilmore, though. So in the cold open of Gilmore, Lorelai makes the reference to Kerouac with Joey. And in the pilot of Ted Lasso, Ted is reading Kerouac's Dharma Bums on the plane.
Yeah. I will say, I do love the literary comparisons. You know, pop culture media is pop culture media. You know, I do appreciate when they reference television shows and movies. But it feels more at home and more truthful to have those literary references at play, you know, since Rory was such an avid reader. So I'm here for it.
Yeah, I actually love the use of books on the show. I think it's really interesting. Gilmore... Obviously, Rory is a very voracious reader, and that's a big part of her personality. And Ted Lasso is subtler about it, but it's almost just as important if sprinkled a little more throughout. Like, I think it's episode 2 when Ted is giving books as gifts to each person. Like, he's already got such a read on them that he is gifting them books that he thinks will specifically be aimed at their development. And I think that's a really great leadership moment from him and a very interesting tack to take. So he gives Sam Ender's Game, which is like a military sci-fi. He gives Jamie The Beautiful and the Damned by F. Scott Fitzgerald. Sort of about the party lifestyle and people sort of giving into that vanity, basically. Because obviously Jamie's issue is his vanity and his arrogance. And I think one of my favorites is Roy getting A Wrinkle in Time and saying, "Am I supposed to be the little girl? I'd like you to be, yeah." And then, he's sitting in the bed with Phoebe reading it to her, and he has this revelation, and he's just sitting there and he's like, expletive incoming, fuck. Like it finally hits him why Ted wants him to read that and what it means for him, and he embraces it, and it's great. So there's that, and then there's the fact that Beard is always reading Inverting the Pyramid, which is a book about the history of soccer tactics. So that's very fitting. He's reading and rereading it. You see him reading it over and over again. It's not the only one you see him with, but you see him with it at first and then periodically throughout. And then the last book thing that like really catches me is in season 3 when Jack buys Keeley a signed first edition Sense and Sensibility by Jane Austen. What?
Yeah. Well intended, I'm sure, but do you know your audience right now? I'm not sure.
I mean, she says she loves the book. I think Keeley has read it and understands it, and that Jack picked Austen because she knows Keeley's affinity for it. But like, you need to have FU money to buy a signed first edition Austen. There are not that many of them out there. And as an antiquarian bookseller myself, I'm like salivating. Just what? And the fact that Jack added an inscription right above the signature, I'm just like, yeah, that was a whole thing. But it's just very interesting. I might have more notes about that later. I can't see them right now because I'm at a different part of my notes. But yeah, anyway, going back to the Dharma Bums, it was Kerouac's big follow-up to On the Road. And even within it, there's a reference to Ginsberg and Howl, which is also appearing in season 2. That's the book that Jess takes and leaves some marginalia for Rory in terms of his thoughts and whatnot. That's an interesting one.
Yeah. Would you say that you appreciated more the nods to, I mean, I feel like perhaps I know the answer, but did you appreciate more the nods to like books or to actual movies or television shows? Like, which stood out to you more when being referenced on either show?
Right. The nods to books were thinner. I actually quite like the musical theater ones. I'm not as much of a musical theater person, but even so, just the way they did it, or musicals in general, just because it just adds some whimsy, I think, that I quite enjoyed, and the way they managed to do it. Whereas the books were a little more in the background. They had a different function, I think, in terms of references. So, and the rom-com stuff was pretty funny, which we'll get to more of that as well. But and last but not least, on Dharma Bums, it was sort of inspired by Kerouac's turn to Buddhism, and Dharma is a concept in Buddhism that it sort of deals with like conduct of living, like virtue, the virtues in the right way of living, cosmic law and order. There's different beliefs about it, whether it's in Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, etc. But generally, morality and conduct of life. And Buddhism specifically, just the whole philosophy of that is attempting to attain liberation from suffering via not clinging so much to things, physical things, material things, right? And that very much speaks to Ted Lasso in terms of let it go. Let go of the things that hold you back. So I think that that's a very specific, like they chose this for a reason. These concepts and, you know, Kerouac dealing with like dualities of ideals and these new Eastern philosophical awakenings, just sort of how that foreshadows Ted's path a little bit. I loved it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll get to Let It Go soon enough, not right this very second, because it does prevalently play into Ted Lasso. But what did you think, speaking, you know, on this topic now, because, you know, going, maybe shifting gears into a little bit of the music, musical representation on Gilmore Girls and on Ted Lasso? You know, obviously, I feel like both shows fall back on, you know, highlighting one artist specifically, but on the whole, both make use of, I think, really great soundtracks. Which one did you end up liking better?
Oh, I don't know if I have an answer to that. They're both excellent in their own ways. Ted Lasso very much focuses on a soundtrack rather than a score. You know, Sam Phillips' fingerprints are all over Gilmore, and it's a lot of the la-las and just those short phrases of music that are so capable of evoking emotion. Whereas Ted Lasso makes this really incredible use of modern pop and punk and hip hop and rock and like all of these things, musical scores, like stage musical, that is, Broadway scores, and also Marcus Mumford's original music. So like Marcus Mumford is to Ted Lasso what Sam Phillips is to Gilmore, and so I think that's definitely a big point of similarity between the two shows, that they've got these very unique and recognizable musical voices. And oh, I don't know, it's really hard. I obviously have a Stars Hollow playlist. So, and it's great. I love it. I'm constantly listening to it. But I also found myself going to like Apple iMusic and searching the Ted Lasso music and just downloading the whole thing. Just being like, I need all of this. So, I mean, Gilmore, I don't think you can do that in the same way. They don't really have soundtracks per se. But I don't know. It's so hard to say, but I will say that Marcus Mumford's, I think his name's Tom Howe. He's got a partner he works with on the music, but last name Howe for sure. Just whoever is in charge of like those musical choices just really knows how to evoke a feeling with something, and how to make a song tie into what's happening in the moment. I definitely have some instances listed as I go through this of like very good examples of that, but Gilmore just has good music, you know what I mean? Where it's just like, you know, XTC's on in the background, or, you know, they're listening to something or whatever, but Ted Lasso is backed by songs that fit the moment. And so much music. And so I think, like, I think 3 seasons of Ted Lasso has more music than Gilmore Girls. So in that way, I think maybe Ted Lasso wins a little bit just by the sheer extensive use and emotional resonance of it, as opposed to just like, hey, we have good taste in music and picked fun songs for these moments.
Yeah, I mean, I will say for Gilmore Girls, sometimes all you really needed, you know, was the la-las. We get various iterations of that throughout all the seasons. You know, not all la-las are the same. You know, and I love how they were able to put spins on, you know, the different la-las, where it's like, this one sounds happy, this one, you know, sounds sad, this one sounds, you know, mellow, and they paired it up with moments that fit the emotion of the scene. I do appreciate Gigi doing that well, and just not even taking lyrics or words, but just, you know, having, you know, monosyllabic la-las to fit a scene. I'd give a point to Gigi for music.
And again, I don't think the Gigi music is bad, but at the same time, like, there are only so many iterations of the Lalas, you know, like the same song or the same backing. Like, granted, I see what you mean where you say, like, maybe it's not always necessary. Maybe you just need that sort of like emotional resonance. But they'll have the same song playing or the same clip of Sam vocalizing playing in very different moments, in very different contexts. Whereas Ted Lasso was able to take a moment and be like, I have a song for this. And it makes you feel like, who? I mean, obviously, as a big Gilmore fan, I'm very nostalgic for the Lalas and I have associations with them. It was effective. Did they need more? Maybe not. I don't know. I think in terms of like prodigious use of modern music to back a television show, Ted Lasso knocks it out of the park. And it's more complex because the songs actually match the moments as opposed to like, okay, well, this is a sad moment, so we're going with the sad Lalas. It's like every sad moment has the same sound. And, you know, that mental association is strong. You're like, oh, I'm supposed to be sad now, as opposed to Ted Lasso, where it's like the lyrics of this song actually match this moment to a T. Like they actually go through and match that, which different styles, you know, both have their pros and cons. Neither is bad. Neither is like obviously superior, but I just, you know, the more I listen to Marcus Mumford's soundtrack, the more I'm like, my God, this is good. Like,
yeah. I'll end the music train by saying, what did you think of them, you know, taking their own, like, or you know, putting their own spin on the Ted Lasso intro in Beard's Night Out when he goes out and you have that whole, like, you know, he's on the train or subway montage and it's just, you know, him riding it for a couple of hours, but they really slow it down in that regard. Did you like that take?
yeah, I thought that was fun. I like that occasionally they did change the intro up a little bit. The other one that comes to mind is Carol of the Bells, the Christmas episode in season 2, when they did like an animated Christmas version of it. So that's fun times. One last like episode 1 funny quote that I want to reference before moving on to like one other thing about music, just before I like lose this. But one of my favorite quotes was Jesus, Mary, and fuckface Joseph. I just thought that was funny, so throwing that in there for your edification.
Is that you, Roy?
Yeah, that's Roy. During training. But the other interesting thing about music that Ted Lasso does that Gilmore also does is the diegetic music in the form of live musicians, buskers. So in season 4, Ted actually refers to Cam Cole as a troubadour, and I'm like, hey. Yeah, that Cam Cole scene at the benefit for children was just amazing. I love Ted being like, this is one book you don't want to judge by its cover. And everybody was so skeptical, but Ted really came in and saved the day. And that guy was so good.
It was genuinely good music and the entire audience loved it. Yeah, I think that's a really great way to encapsulate it. Don't judge a book by its cover. And they did when he came in and they're just like, this guy looks like he's a bum that just came off the streets and then just ended up dropping some sick tunes. So
yeah, really, really good. Another thing I noticed in the second episode, but that I'm not sure that we really see again, is that, so I didn't really know this until recently, but all schools in England wear uniforms, not just private schools or Catholic schools. And I noticed that the kids who are playing in the Richmond Green have costumes, or like uniforms, that are like Chilton's, with the blue plaid skirt, blue blazer, although they have a different tie style. I think they have like regular striped ties, but they've got like the sweater vest and black shoes instead of saddles. But I thought it was funny that they, like, even sort of the color scheme of these school, like, teenage girls was reminiscent of Chilton. So fun facts.
Yeah, I did not know that they did that.
I only noticed it on this watch. There, I was like, "What? How did I not notice that?"
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Episode 3 has Connection by Elastica, which is a good song, but not as good as the car song that plays when Jess and Rory crash the car Dean built for her. That's our song has my heart.
I'm aware you made me listen to it just a million times at this point. I feel like I just hear it in my sleep.
We've done enough road trips that you've heard car song a lot.
It'll probably pop up again sooner rather than later.
Yeah. Also in episode 4, which is the same one with the troubadour, Ted makes a West Side Story reference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's actually a movie that I never really enjoyed. I feel like it's just, considered a classic, so to say. But I'm actually out on West Side Story. Never did it for me.
I've never seen it.
You're not missing anything.
My cultural lexicon is pathetic.
No, it's okay. I ain't mad at you for that one. That's fine.
Fair. That's fair. There's a few classics I could probably do a skip, including that one maybe. I don't know. I don't know if it'll be my thing. Not to say that it's like bad, but just is it my vibe? I don't know. From what I gather,
you're good.
Another funny reference, and I can't remember if this happens in Gilmore or not. I feel like it does. There's a Parent Trap reference where Ted changes the seating at the table to have Jamie and Roy together, and he's like, "A Parent Trap, y'all."
Mm-hmm.
I feel like there's a Parent Trap reference, and if there isn't, it still reminds me of when Rory tries to manipulate Emily and Richard and have like the separate dinners. Like, I'll talk to Grandpa, you talk to Grandma, let's get them back together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I will say too, you did an excellent Ted accent there. Like just Midwestern, what do we refer to it as? Geez, middle clump accent.
Yeah.
Nailed it.
Thank you.
You want to go husk some corn now?
Sure. So Keely, obviously, is a model, and she's having this conversation with Rebecca where she says, when I was 18, I was dating a 23-year-old footballer. Now I'm almost 30. I'm still dating a 23-year-old footballer. I'm Leonardo DiCaprio. And that reminds me of Like Mother, Like Daughter, when Lorelai says, oh, they threw that modeling thing in there. And Rory's like, my mom's a model. Maybe you'll get to date Leonardo DiCaprio now.
Yeah. But also, first off, far from Leonardo DiCaprio, because I feel like the age gap is not as prevalent as what that man has done in real life in terms of the women that he's dated. Not going to go there. That's not going to be commentary I make right now. Even though Ted Lasso kind of does the same thing with Rebecca and Sam, but
we'll get there.
Yeah. However, yeah, I'll just hold off on my ageism thoughts for the time being.
We'll get there. Yeah. In the 6th episode, we find out Higgins's cat's name. Speaking of cats and, new cats, you name them and whatnot. If your cat had been a girl, I might have suggested Cindy Crawford. Just the best.
MVP Higgins. MVP. Like
MVP. Yeah. And the reason I highlighted this one especially too is that in real life, Cindy Crawford is married to Randy Gerber and Luke is Randy Gerber hot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, just Higgins is like winning at life. Like excellent wife, fantastic sons, and then you name your cat that. Like bravo, sir. You won this show.
He wins at life. We love Higgins. We stan Higgy Smalls here.
Oh my gosh, I'm never gonna not refer to him as that now.
I know. The next episode is when they go to Liverpool, which is one of my favorite episodes of season 1. I feel like I kind of want to skip over it for the moment because it doesn't have a ton of references that are Gilmore related. I kind of want to focus on that first, and then we'll go back and talk about the character stuff. But so the episode after that is the Diamond Dogs, which there's a Diamond Dogs Bowie reference. It's Bowie, right? In season 7, when Zach is doing the music for Papa's funeral. And then the other thing that really caught my eye on this one is Nate saying, to be liked by someone as awesome as Keely must be swonderful. And then Ted's like, shout out to the Gershwin brothers right there.
Yeah.
So obviously, it's Wonderful, it's Marvelous, written by Ira Gershwin, used in Funny Face, which appears in season 7. And there's an episode, It's Wonderful, it's Marvelous. In case you didn't know. I'm Lasso explaining to you right now.
My little theater heart did know, but it's so proud.
Yeah. What else have we got? In episode 9, Ted makes an Audi 5000 reference, which Michelle does at some point. I think, is that in the revival? I can't remember. Like, whatever, an Audi 5000.
Yeah.
It's either like it's a later season or it's the revival. Oh, this one's just like a funny quote that I highlighted. That's not Gilmore related, but I'm going to do it now. Van Damme says something about midnight poutine, and someone's like, that's not dirty, it's just super Canadian.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
You know, that's just, I'm sorry, it's another food train that I'm just never going to get on.
Yeah, I'm not a poutine person either. Well, as a vegetarian, I don't really eat a lot of gravy. Most of them are meat-based. And I can be weird about cheese. So cheese curds are like weird and rubbery, and I'm like, I'm not about that life. So
like, we can move on. That's just gonna
enough said. Season 2, episode 1, Goodbye Earl. There's a Magnolia reference. Someone wants 3 hours of their life back?
Oh, maybe. But I mean, this is where, like, again, I feel like season 1 was good. I feel like as it went on, they really started to dive deep into more of like the TV and the movie nods. And obviously theater background, comedy background, like, I'm going to be here for that all day.
Yeah, that's fair. The references did pick up. I think they sort of, a lot of shows do that where they get their footing and they do proof of concept. And then they really lean into their own proclivities and they're like, here's what you're getting now is this pop culture reference laden dialogue. Congratulations. You're going to love it.
I wonder if it was also just because like Ted was coming into his own with the football club. So maybe he felt like they were just going to be more accepting of those proclivities and him just like dishing out these, you know, nods to pop culture. You know, I feel like, as like him and Beard, you know, we're just really being welcomed in by the team. Like, it was more just acknowledgement of like, everyone's cool about it now. And it just, you know, getting more comfortable with one another.
That's a really good point. He had earned their respect and had found his stride. And so he got more confident and came into himself a little bit more. And that could absolutely be the reason why it picks up in universe. Episode 2, Ted says his favorite book is The Fountainhead. It's a curveball, but he can explain. Ayn Rand is a political nut job. Yeah, you know what? Like, it is what it is. I would say a bigger red flag for like me, Laura, personally in my life. Like, if you tell me your favorite book is Catcher in the Rye, like, thank you. Have a nice life. Like, we're good. You're not a Salinger fan. No, I hated that book. I really hate. Yeah. Okay. Also, I missed one. Again, this is not a Gilmore specific reference, but just something that when I first listened to it, I was like, yes, King. When Keely and Roy and Rebecca and whatever his name is, I think his name's John or something. I don't know. Rebecca goes on a date with this guy, a double date with Keely and Roy. And, you know, he's a perfectly nice guy. And, you know, Rebecca's trying to get Keely's feedback at the end. And she's like, yeah, he was nice. Like, he was a good guy. And then Roy is like, he was fine. But you should be with someone who makes you feel like you've been struck by fucking lightning. Don't you dare settle for fine. And I was like, oh, wow, that is a good line for a TV show. And it's also a good way to live your life. Because I remember, like, when I first met Dan in person, like, I was like, wow, I feel like I've been struck by lightning. Like, something, like, I feel alive after 2 years of the pandemic. Like, wow.
Mm-hmm.
To feel that electricity with someone, and just the way he puts it, like, you should feel like you've been struck by fucking lightning. And I'm like, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what's next?
Yep.
Oh, we're skipping down a little bit. Episode 5, Rainbow, has like a ton of homages and references to a number of romantic comedies. When Harry Met Sally, Jerry Maguire, like You Had Me at Coach,
Mm-hmm.
Sleepless in Seattle, Bridget Jones's Diary, Four Weddings and a Funeral, You've Got Mail. Something I didn't like. Again, confession: I've never seen You've Got Mail. No, I don't know how I've made it this long without seeing that movie, but I have not. And someone pointed out online that Rebecca goes by Boss Girl on Banter, and Meg Ryan's character goes by Shop Girl, and her anonymous guy, who we eventually find out is Sam, goes by LDN, like London 152, on the dating app. And in You've Got Mail, Tom Hanks' character is NY152. And I'm like, I would not have known that. So thank you, random internet people, for spotting that. I'm sure anyone who's seen the movie will get it, and I just did not. There's a Princess Bride reference. Nate gets a makeover montage a little bit, which is like every rom-com ever. Episode 7. Someone makes an irreverent joke about The Sopranos to a therapist.
And the problem is where?
I never said there was a problem. I just said it's a point of comparison.
Oh, I'm just saying, like,
yeah. I don't even remember what the Sopranos reference is, but like that's what my note says, is someone makes an irreverent joke about the Sopranos to a therapist. So that's fun. Yeah.
Did you have a favorite out of all of the nods that we get? Not like let's exclude books. I know, just
you know what? We haven't even gone through them all. We're only like just over halfway through them. So how about I tell you that at the end?
Okay.
Because I don't even remember. I don't have any answer for you. But in season 2, episode 11, they do the bye 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 dance. He's like trying to teach them the choreography to the NSYNC video. Not a ton of NSYNC references in Gilmore Girls, but like it makes me think of Emily in Wonderland with the posters. And is it it's the music magazine that Zach reads. He's like, I don't want to sound all in sync.
Yeah, you know what? I remember the first time I saw that, like, well, I mean, the first time, because I haven't, seen this show a million times at this point, but it made me think of just the Brooklyn Nine-Nine scene where he's having them sing as they're doing the lineup for, like, suspects. And it's like different boy band. Yeah, different boy band. But I was like, I'm here for all of these moments.
Yeah. It's like, cool reference, still murder. But yeah. This one actually might be in contention for the best one, because they're talking about Edwin Akufu, who is the Ghanaian billionaire who offers to buy Sam Obasanya from her. And Higgins says, I believe he's making you an offer you can't refuse. And Ted's like, Godfather, I got you. And Rebecca's like, well, I'm refusing an offer you can't make. And Ted said, is that a quote from the third movie?
I'm not going to touch that with a 10-foot pole.
So good. And then in the last episode of the season, they're selecting new Greyhound puppies for their mascot. And Higgins refers to one of them as Macy Greyhound.
I mean, the man named his cat Cindy Clawford. So, like, yeah, snaps for Higgins. Like, he should just name all the pets in the world.
Yeah. Well, speaking of cats, you know my philosophy when it comes to cats, babies, and apologies. You got to let them come to you.
If that ain't the truth.
Yeah. Roy does that photo shoot with Keely. This is, again, not connected, but just a line I really like and very poignant for Roy, where he's like doing this photo shoot with her. And when they get the sort of preview of it, he realizes that they didn't use any of the pictures he was in, and he's like, they didn't use a single picture with me in it, and it hurt my feeling.
Just your feeling?
Singular feeling. So good. What else have we got? As I got through, like, when I was doing season 1, I barely made any notes. Season 2, a couple more notes. Season 3, it's just like so many notes, more like quotes and stuff. I think it's because this is only my second watch through of season 3, and I was just like really trying to pick up on the details of it and remember it better. But here's a fun one. This might be up there, maybe like second place so far to the Godfather one. But in season 3 at the beginning, Ted takes the team down into the sewers.
Oh, I know where this is going.
Yeah. And Beard references The Great Stink of 1858. Obviously, episode of Gilmore Girls called The Great Stink has to do with pickles. But in London in 1858, there was a spell of hot weather that exacerbated the smell of untreated human waste and industrial effluent. So, yeah, it was pretty bad. The sewer system in London was inadequate, and a bunch of engineers tried to solve the problem. So, like, that was an actual thing that happened in London, the Great Stink, and it was probably a lot worse than pickles.
What a time to be alive.
Yeah. It would not have been a time to be alive. God. Yeah. This time is hardly a time to be alive, but neither here nor there. Episode 2, I Don't Want to Go to Chelsea. Roy Kent, former Chelsea player. As you can see, I'm a Blues fan. My fiance is lifelong. I have always liked football, but never really had an EPL team to root for. I was always like, I would watch the crap out of that if I just had like a connection to a team. And so when I started dating Dan, I was like, all right, Chelsea's my team now. And here I am in a Chelsea jacket. But anyway, specifically in this office, Zava mentions the British version of The Office, which obviously Rory and Logan bond over in season 5. So, Zava's wife watched it and said she wanted to live in England. So he left Juventus, and Ted's like, I think he means Scranton, Pennsylvania, which is also a Gilmore reference because that's where Dean ends up living.
Middle club,
Pennsylvania.
Just go to Scranton, pop out like 4 kids, community college it up.
The subway is lit. Oh, okay. The other thing that they do really well, I think they're all in season 3. But they all make me laugh so much. There are so many Italian references in this. Speaking of your Italia jersey, your Italia kit right now. So obviously Zava is currently playing in the Italian league at Juventus. And so Ted's like, ooh, catch you later, Pepe. I died.
It's
it's a pasta joke, and it's nowhere near as bad as Zach and the ragu. Okay.
Okay. Yes, that's fair.
Oh, right.
Ragu.
Yeah.
If you're watching this video and you ever consider ragu, email.
We don't want your
email or podcast, and we'll give you alternatives. But please don't ever subject yourselves to that.
Yeah. And this one's not a Gilmore reference, but funny pop culture reference. We're being so unoffensive. We're basically a Hallmark Christmas movie.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of musical theater talk in episode 3 of season 3. I just highlighted musical theater talks. Oh, they have like a whole conversation about Julie Andrews and like favorite Julie Andrews movie.
Mm-hmm.
Roy Kent is a big Princess Diaries fan, apparently. And I'm like, yes.
Roy Kent.
Yeah. Oh,
I mean,
okay, you go ahead.
No, I was just about to say, like, Mia Thermopolis, the man knows what's up.
Yep. Okay, in this episode, we have a marvelous Mrs. Maisel reference. Sam references Miss Maisel.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Which,
We have an
in case you're
A.F.C.
watching
crossover.
this, yeah, I was about to say, if you're ignorant, yeah, that's our girl Amy locking it down. Just, I feel like it just tracks for me that Sam would be going home from a match or at the end of every day, just winding down to Maisel. Like, I can so clearly see it in my head.
Oh, I love Sam so much. And then I think this is episode 4. Sassy tells Ted that he's a mess, and so he goes around asking people, "Is like, am I a mess?" And he asks Rebecca, and she's like, "Of course, that's why we get along." And I'm like, that to me is Gilmore.
Yeah, but it's also just, again, the self-awareness there. I don't think we've mentioned it, but like Rebecca's just the clarity that woman has with like even the old hot mess that she can be at, you know, the stage that she's at in life. Like, I think that's why her and Ted get along so well. It's just because like y'all are in the same just dumpster right now of like hot mess central. So like paddling down the same dumpster riverboat.
It's true. They're so sort of in step with each other and running parallel to each other as they work through their divorces that, had very different circumstances, but divorce is still divorce. It's a hard thing to go through, and there's a lot of adjustment that comes with that. And so it's nice that they can relate about that. We have another Italian reference. The guys in the pub, I can't remember who said it exactly, but one of them said, "We're playing like Italians," and then the other guy says, "I know, it's awesome."
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not that we haven't like won a World Cup in a million years, but it's fine. It's fine.
It's fine. It's fine.
It's fine.
Yeah. This is kind of a fun one. The actor who plays Sam's dad, Ola, is Nam Sawanozi, who also plays. You know who it is?
Yes, Zaro Zohandaxas.
Yes. Game of Thrones reference. Another like Game of Thrones alum, along with Hannah. There are probably others that I'm not remembering right now, but like strong.
Well, the one of the three, I'm blanking on names tonight for whatever reason, but it's one of the 3 guys that is always just hanging out at the pub. Who is an A.F.C. Richmond fan. He was the member of the Night's Watch in the Game of Thrones pilot who went out and initially encountered the White Walker and then survived, went back down south, and was beheaded by Ned Stark.
Are we sure about that?
I'm 1,000% positive.
Okay. Wow. I mean, like, I can kind of see the resemblance for sure, but I feel like I would have recognized the name, But regardless.
Can confirm.
Okay, I'll have to take your word for it. My God, my notes are so full of like British slurs. Again, I have an English fiance, so I'm just like, I made a note here. So when Ted's ex starts dating their ex-marital therapist, which is just insanely unethical and messed up, Michelle and Dr. Jacob come to London, and Jacob takes her to Paris as like a surprise. But they're sitting around at the Crown and Anchor, and Ted's like calling him Dr. Jacob, obviously, because he's having a hard time separating the person from the therapist. That's why you don't date your therapists, guys. And the guy's like, "Just call me Jake." And what I literally wrote down was, "Piss off, you twat." You can't just rewrite your history with this guy who is your patient by insisting he call you by the name your friends call you. That doesn't make what you did okay because you're super chill. That's literally what I wrote down. This is how I roll.
Damn.
Yeah, I'm unhinged. Okay. Oh, God. Oh, what else have we got? Any more good references? Les Miserables in the last couple episodes. Excellent. Excellent references. Anyway, you gonna say something?
Oh no, I was just about to say, like, I'm just kind of I'm routinely flummoxed by just the language. And yeah. That's it.
That's fair. I've got at least one more. So there's the busker playing Hey Jude, and Beard has that conversation with Henry where he sort of explains the whole John Lennon situation. That was cute. And there's, obviously some Beatles references and, talk about John and Yoko and all of that from Lane specifically. Oh, what's this one? Oh, so in episode 8, Henry tells Ted that he is starting a band with one of his friends and that he wants to learn to play drums. And then Ted references the fact that Dave Grohl learned to play drums on pillows. And then later Michelle makes the exact same reference. And I'm like, who would appreciate that reference is Link Kim.
Yep. She would indeed.
Yeah. Also, like, going back to Les Mis, there was like that reference in episode, I think it was 7, and then it comes back in episode 11 as well, in just like one of the best moments of season 3, which is when Beard goes to Nate and tells the backstory of him and Ted as, like meeting in college, and then, when they went their separate ways, Beard got into drugs and Nate's like, this sounds like Les Mis. And Beard's like, yes, our story does bear some similarity to Les Mis. And then says, I stole a loaf of meth. So good. Like that line.
Have you seen Les Mis?
I have not.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, here's another semi-Gilmore connected. Episode 9 is called La Locker Room au Folle, which is a riff on La Cage aux Folles, which is obviously a Broadway play. The song I Am What I Am plays at the end. It's a Broadway play based on a book by the same name as far as I know, about 2 gay men. And so this goes along with Colin's story. And I think it was the book that he wrote, but Harvey Fierstein was involved with writing that in some capacity. And it reminds me of Paris in the Bangles concert episode where she says, my mother's having the entire place redone. She wants all evidence of my father out of there. So unless you want to sit on no furniture while watching 3 Harvey Fierstein impersonators rip up the carpet and paint everything a ridiculous shade of white and call it Angel's Kiss, then we're going to have to find somebody else's house to go to.
Oh, Paris.
Yeah. I love that. Very tangential connection, but again, musical theater and slight dropped references in Gilmore and all of that. So I like that one. Again, not a Gilmore one, but I love this line. Godspeed, or whatever narcotic your deity chooses to self-medicate with.
Yeah.
I love how you don't even know what to say that. Neither do I, frankly. I'm like, what?
Great, yeah, that's just
the what?
Yeah. No comment, because I'm like, how do you respond to that?
Yeah. Episode 10. Barbara, who is Keeley's CFO at her publishing, or not publishing, what am I talking about? Her PR company. I guess I'm thinking about the road trip to Harvard when Lorelai was a publisher. Children's books. So Barbara, who's, usually sort of uptight, blank-faced, professional CFO. She's cleaning out the office and she's wearing like a matching juicy velour sweatsuit. And Keeley compliments it and she says, thank you. I like clothes that tell the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And it reminds me of A Family Affair when Emily comes to Lorelai's house and she's wearing juicy sweatpants. And she's like, you have the word juicy on your rear end. Well, if I'd known you were coming over, I would have changed. Into what? A brassiere with the word tasty on it?
Sure. Okay, Emily. It's fine. Fine.
Yeah.
Go. Just have your 2 glasses of wine at lunch. You're good.
Yeah. Okay. Again, not a Gilmore Girls quote, but also kind of applicable. In episode 11, the penultimate episode of the whole series, it's called Mom City, and we meet Ted's mom and Jamie's mom. And so Ted's mom comes to work with her, or with him. And when they go to meet Rebecca, initially she introduces herself as Ted's bodyguard. But the more she talks and makes references, like Rebecca puts together the pieces like within 30 seconds, like, oh my God, you're Ted's mom. And her response is, winner, winner, B.F. Skinner. And I think that may be the best line of television ever written.
You're not wrong.
Like,
it could have been a contender.
Yeah. If anyone doesn't know, B.F. Skinner is a behavioral psychiatrist.
Yeah.
Very, like, one of the most famous behavioral psychiatrists.
Mm-hmm.
And so that line is just funny on so many freaking levels.
Yep.
This one's fun. Bit of a headcanon, not a definite connection. But there's a player on the team who we had never gotten his name before now. It's apparently Tan Roberts. In my headcanon, I have to believe that this is a nod to Tanya Roberts.
Okay.
And it reminds me of the Charlie's Angels plates that they collect. Remember Emily in Wonderland when she's like,
Yeah.
we have the Farrah Fawcett's and, the Tanya Roberts are easy to come by. Like, I'm just like, Tan Roberts, like, it has to be Tanya Roberts, right?
I would think so.
Yeah. It just fits,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that might well be. Okay, here's a good, like, going back to the music conversation and just saying, like, how good Marcus Mumford was at picking songs to go with moments. At the end of episode 11, the song that plays over the end credits is called Home by Brandi Carlile.
Mm-hmm.
And again, just so perfect. And it reminds me of another song by her that also kind of fits with Ted Lasso called Wherever Is Your Heart. And I'm like, Wherever Is Your Heart was too jaunty to play in that moment, but Home worked a lot better. And so I'm like, nailed it. Oh wait, are there more references in 3? There's one more episode left. I can't say that I've gone through all of the references until there are so many like little connections and things, like callbacks, great lines.
Yeah.
Like, we can't get to everything.
Yeah, no, it is so hard because, like, I feel like, again, like, we've only watched, I mean, you've certainly, I think, seen Ted Lasso maybe a couple times. I've only watched it through twice. It's hard to, especially when you're binging, like, you're going to miss things, So I'm sure there are a lot of pop cultural references that are there that I'm just, like, not absorbing. But that's why you just go back and you keep rewatching, because, like, the more it sinks in, like, every rewatch that you do, you're always going to pick up something new. I mean, and for all the times that we've seen Gilmore, I'm sure we're still picking up new stuff all the time. So,
yeah, it's very true. I definitely am. And, the other side of that coin is all the football references. That's a cultural thing unto itself. I watched the show with Dan, who's, lifelong football fan. And so he explained a lot of things to me that I didn't know before watching this. And, Ted Lasso, despite the fact that it's framed around a Premier League team, it's not really a show about sports. Sports are just a metaphor for life and relationships and how we relate to one another and what it means to be part of a team and a community. But yeah, there's still a lot of football references that will go over your head if you're not a sports fan, at least the first time. But like, one that I kind of immediately put together, even without Dan's help, was Zava, like the character of Zava, being based on Zlatan Ibrahimovic, who he's like Eastern European origin, like Bosnian and Croatian, I think. But he grew up in Sweden and played for the Swedish national team, and he played for Inter Milan. And he looks almost exactly like Maximilian Osinski, who plays Zava in the show. And like, Zava, obviously the actor who played him, took inspiration from him, but a few other footballers as well. But I was just like, hey, I understood that reference. I was the Leo DiCaprio meme of like, hey, I got that one with Zlatan. So, very flamboyant player, very acrobatic kind of style of play. And very eccentric in his real life, and also went on to play for the LA MLS team, which, if you pay attention to the very end of the finale, when Ted's at the airport, there's all these like newspaper articles and magazine articles, and it shows that Zava's coming back out of retirement to play for LAFC. Like, yes, yep. Of course he is. Of course he is. But anyway, I feel like that's good on references. That took a lot longer than I thought. I did not think we would go for 55 minutes, but I know us by now. So let's swap to character stuff, because there are definitely a couple character comparisons that jumped out at me. And I'm wondering if you have any different ones or similar takes. So why don't you start with like any two characters? Just like pick two people who you saw like a connection, like Gilmore to Ted Lasso. Like who reminds you of whom in these shows?
Strongest one for me across the board, Nate and Rory.
Fair enough. I had that too. That was on my list.
Yeah. Way too self-absorbed at times. Way too pretentious. You know, for Rory, I think it was a part of her upbringing. For Nate, I think it was just self-actualization that was really misplaced, but they, at different points in their lives, just saw themselves as better than other people and looked down on other people as being lesser, which is just so, it's just shitty, like, pardon the language, but it's like, do better, you two. But I feel like the two of them were just so horrible with how they could look down on other people and treat other people, think that they were, you know, better than others, you know, that they deserved more, that they were entitled to more because of status, where they were at in life. You know, I think of just Nate even going into just an average restaurant and thinking that because now he's, you know, the manager of a football club, like, I'm entitled to the best table, the best everything, you know. And he's kind of in that situation, you know, spoon-fed that sort of privilege by the owner of that restaurant, just being like, oh my gosh, you're here, whatever you want. Like, but it's dangerous to feed him that. But don't get me started. I will go off on those two for like the next million years if you let me. But Nate was just a character that, when it was interesting, because when I started watching this show and you get into season 1, I actually really liked Nate. I thought he was a really just sweet character. And I liked him. And then as soon as we got into season 2 and his personality started changing and he started making those choices and just really treating the people around him poorly, it was not even just like a little bit of a switch. It was like, I really don't like you anymore. And for me to feel that strongly about a character and just have it be so night and day, where it went from I like you to like, wow, I think you're deplorable. Yeah, I mean, and it's kind of parallel to how I felt with Rory sometimes, where I feel like we're led to believe that she is like the you know, the white angel of the show. But there are times when I feel like we really don't, and I really don't like Rory because she's just treating people around her just really horribly. So again, Rory and Nate was, I think, the strongest takeaway for me in terms of paralleled characters.
Yeah, they were absolutely on my list too. And just to add to what you said, they, like you said, they both kind of, they're prodigiously smart, genius level smart. But their downfalls kind of come from different origins. Rory's comes from being put up on a pedestal and being told she can do anything and be anyone, and just like unceasing praise. Whereas Nate was the opposite. He didn't get as much praise as he wanted or needed. He had all this pressure on him to perform and to not waste his potential from his father, but never got the commensurate support and praise when he did something right. It was almost like never enough for his dad. where everything was always enough for Lorelai. So it shows that both ends of the spectrum can create people who are self-absorbed and obsessed with external validation. It's how you handle the pressure that's put on you and how you support people in your life who are gifted like that. You need the middle road where it's just like, you need to be like Jamie's mom, where it's like, you're great and don't listen to him and like, don't worry about it. But I guess maybe she's a little too close to Lorelai. Maybe that's a bad comparison, or maybe be like Ola, provide critical feedback and like words of affirmation, but also like something that's not just, you're great, sweetie, keep going. Yeah. And the other interesting comparison there, as alluded to, is like Rory and Nate both have sort of like messed up parental relationships. Both have messed up father figures, especially. Although Nate's father is the one who sort of has more of an impact on his psyche than Rory's dad, because he wasn't around as much. It's more Lorelai's influence on Rory in terms of like, you're perfect, you can't do anything wrong. But yeah, you're right. Like they're both really easy characters to like at the beginning too. They're both sort of like meek and shy and awkward and whatnot, and then they're sort of given the respect they deserve by other people eventually. And you're like, yes, you deserve that. You've earned that. Great. But then they keep making small bad decision after small bad decision that leads to like really bad big decisions, and they become really hard to like. Ultimately gaining some redemption, sort of, but they did a better job, at least I think, of trying to give Nate some redemption. I still think it wasn't complete. Maybe he doesn't deserve our absolute absolution just yet. Whereas with Rory, they just sort of brush it aside. At least with Nate, they tried to handle it. They tried to show some team forgiveness and reconciliation with Ted and Beard and all these other characters. Whereas with Rory, it's just like, I effed up real bad, but like, we're just going to move on from that because it's not important and I'm still great. So there's that.
Yeah. And I think that both of them were always just very, like, way too concerned with how the rest of the world and how other people saw them. I mean, Nate is constantly checking his phone and social media to see, like, what is Twitter saying about me, from my time at Richmond to my time at West Ham, like, what is the universe saying about me as a head coach? How often we see him checking it and how much he is seeking that validation from what people that you don't even like. And in Rory's case, it's like, I care about what people think of me, but it's like almost more like people that Rory knows. Nate was just seeking this like weird sort of validation that people were going to be accepting of him and liking him. And it's like, this could be someone that lives like 5,000 miles away from you that you're never going to meet. But like, if they tweet a positive thing about you, like, you're just seeking that sort of external validation. And it's like, you can't let your happiness and well-being be based off of that. That's so dangerous. But they were just always so absorbed with how they saw themselves, but more so how other people saw them as well and how they were viewed. And they couldn't handle any sort of criticism or rejection, whether it was from someone that they knew or not. And that's just also something I just didn't love about either of them. You need to like not care, and just, it's not about not wanting like, people to appreciate you, but you can't be that bent out of shape if someone that you will never even meet says something bad about you on social media. Like, Nate got way too absorbed in that. And because he was so cognizant of just trying to like make people like him and make the world like him, he treated others poorly for it. And I think it was because that was just a weird way for him to be exhibiting what he sees as strength and confidence. But it's like, you're just being an asshole. So no.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. All right, moving on. Let's move on to Lorelai, and someone in the show I think has some like they're not as strong parallels, but like some similarities to her. And I'm wondering, like, I have a name written down, and I'm curious who you would say, and let's see if they're the same. Who do you think it is, or like who is it for you?
Lorelai. I feel like it might surprise you. I don't think it's the name that you're going to have, but it's just what is coming to mind and what is paralleling for me. Roy.
That is not the name I had. I have a different name for Roy.
Who do you have for Lorelai?
Tell me why Roy is like Lorelai, because I have thoughts.
I just feel like resilient and uncaring necessarily about how they were viewed. Roy more so than Lorelai, but I feel like they were both very good at shrugging off difficult situations in their lives and just continuing to push forward. You know, Roy was obviously facing the end of his soccer career where it's like, you're too old to play now. You know, you're being relegated to being like a commentator on a television program, not really what you want to be doing. Lorelai had a very similar path where, you know, she was encountering struggles, you know, had to work her way up to where she would want to be. And when she was discontent with what she was doing, you know, left and found her true passion in the same way that I think Rory did, where, you know, he was never going to be that commentator, like, and that's what Ted saw in him. He was like, you need to be coaching. Like, that's where your heart is. That's what you want to be doing. I feel like Lorelai had a similar path and just being like, I'm discontent with what I'm doing. Let me find what is going to make me happy. And so I feel like Roy was a bit of a stronger character in terms of not letting other people get to him. Lorelai definitely internalized a lot of that when she was criticized for things, especially coming from Emily and Richard. But I feel like they were both just very strong characters in terms of, again, the parallel that I see is just living your life and growing up with a goal in mind of what you want to have. For Roy, it was being a footballer. For Lorelai, it was eventually running her own inn. They both face these struggles. They both end up in a position that is, you know, not where they want to be, that is allowing them like a lot of discontent. And then they just move beyond it and they eventually find their true passion and their true career path at the end of the day.
I had Keely.
Keely and Lorelai.
Yeah. You know, Keely is one of the most feminine characters we have on the show in terms of like stereotypical femininity. And I think Lorelai is quite stereotypically feminine. So there's that. And, you know, Keely starts out as a model, which a lot of people, you know, they kind of look down on models the same way they look down on maids. Maybe not the same way, but like models make a lot of money. But, you know, Keely knew that she was capable of more, and she clearly had a good brain for business. And so she ended up working her way into a position of like a higher, like she worked her way up the ladder, basically. She made her own ladder and started working for Richmond as their PR girl. And then eventually she gets her own PR firm. She goes off and starts her own business and has to learn the pitfalls of being her own boss and working with her friends and, you know, going through that kind of change. And there's a line, like when she goes to do that, she goes to Higgins for advice because she's not sure how Rebecca's going to react. And he tells her that a good mentor hopes their mentee will move on and a great one knows you will. And that was Mia, you know? Yeah. Mia gave Lorelai all the chances and she was the one who backed her and helped her out. And so I see sort of that like mentor-mentee thing being a good connection between them. And, you know, just that entrepreneurial spirit, that boss-ass bitch feeling that capable of anything, being the one to say the hard thing I mean, Lorelai can't always do it as effectively as Keely. Keely is very much like the moral compass of the show. I think she's always the tough love person, and sometimes Lorelai has to be the one to deliver that as well. So I think those are the main connections I see between those two.
Yeah, that makes sense as well. I can see it. Who would you say if you had to like equate Rebecca to somebody on Gigi? Hit me with it.
Again, this one's a little bit tenuous. It's really not one-to-one for sure. But I did have a few thoughts about Rebecca being somewhat like Emily.
Okay, yep. Mm-hmm. There it is.
Just, sort of the ultimate matriarch, if you will. And I love in the finale when Ted's like, well, it's better than soccer mom. That was a great line. But, the ultimate sort of, despite the fact that she doesn't have kids, mom figure on Ted Lasso. Even though we have other moms, they're like, we only see them every so often. They're not regular characters. So we see her running the show, if you will, in a similar way that Emily does. We know she's capable of emotional manipulation, although luckily it doesn't last very long. She comes to see the error of her ways and cuts it out. She is filthy rich, but she's not Gilmore rich. She is Huntsberger rich or more. Higgins tells her in the finale, like, if you sold the whole thing, you might get $2 billion for it. Like that is some serious FU money. And the other thing that I see that could maybe be a connection is the fact that, like, they both split from their husbands. Obviously, Emily's isn't a long-term split. Eventually, Richard passes, and that creates a different kind of dynamic where, they might be able to get on the same page as each other. Is they have to learn to move on from a defining relationship, from someone who dominated their life for a long time, who controlled a lot of the aspects of their life. And they have to learn to become their own person and to reconnect with a part of themselves that they haven't acknowledged in years.
Yeah.
Like Rebecca has to get back to her friends and being her sassy self, her silly self. Mm-hmm. And Emily reconnects with, her own passions and intellectual interests with, history and
scaring young children.
Scaring young children, yes. Yeah, so I think that's the closest I can get. Rebecca is kind of a character like none other I've seen on TV. And so it's hard to draw comparisons, but I think that for me was just like, obviously very different circumstances. Rebecca goes through an acrimonious divorce, and Rupert is a literal walking human piece of crap.
To put it nicely.
To put it very, very lightly. I love what Sassy says to him, where she's just like, I sincerely wish you the best, because you are the fucking worst. Mm-hmm. And it's true. He really is. Whereas, Emily and Richard really did have a pretty good relationship for a very long time. So very different circumstances, but, two women who have to learn how to, like, get their seat at the table and reclaim a lost part of themselves that was lost to marriage, unfortunately. Patriarchal bullcrap marriage.
You're selling it really well.
Yeah. Yeah. Says the engaged girl. Like, marriage is great.
Anyone else that you want to highlight in terms of characters that you saw just being, really paralleled with one another?
Yeah, you paralleled Roy to Lorelai, but I actually think he's a lot more like Luke. That whole I'm angry at the world and like I do nothing but rail against everybody else and like their stupid crap, not wanting to participate in things and just being that sort of grumpy sunshine, the person who's only emotional and vulnerable with their romantic partner. Luke really only opens up to Lorelai, but with everybody else, he's gruff and unfriendly at times. And, heart of gold, pretty good dude, but ultimately, just that sort of, the only way I can express emotion is via anger. and
Because
aggression.
that's healthy.
Yeah, totally. I never said it was healthy. I just said it was a parallel.
Yeah.
So yeah, and with Lorelai and Keely having a lot in common. Oh, Keely's also that sort of like sunshine component of that, right? Like, and they make that grumpy sunshine pairing that people seem to like so much with Lorelai and Luke. Obviously, a very different iteration of it, but with them sort of aligning with those characters, it sort of makes sense that they end up together but have their problems.
Yeah, I mean, I can see it now that you said it. And just speaking to the anger thing, like, I agree, because I feel like they can't even explain their anger. I feel like if you were to ask Roy or Luke, like, why are you angry? They'd just be like, I don't know, I just am. Like, let me be angry. And when you can't even justify the emotions that you're feeling, that's an even bigger problem. But both of them definitely had that going on.
Yeah, and both of them lost father figures early on in their life. Roy was, I think, 12 or so, 12, 13 maybe, when his granddad passed while he was training at Sunderland. And Luke was probably, in his 20s when his dad died. And they're both very, like, attached to those men, very nostalgic and sentimental towards them. They do what they can to honor those relationships. And, they both sort of take on mentorship roles for other guys, Luke and Jess and Roy and Jamie. I see a lot of parallels between Jamie and Jess. I alluded to it in the last episode in terms of their character development, but I'll go into that more in a second. And yeah, just both of them sort of having a pretty good, like, we don't know all that much about Roy's family. We know he was like with his granddad. I don't know what the rest of his family is like. I don't remember if we ever got that information, but it's just like, yeah, maybe you weren't the richest growing up, but you had people in your life who cared for you. You had a lot of privileges. You had talent to carry you. You kind of knew from a young age that you would be basically set. And Luke, grew up in a pretty nice, small, idyllic town with a loving family. And obviously, not that he never experienced any hardship, but again, was provided with comforts and privileges that maybe a lot of people didn't get. And so the question becomes, why are you so angry? Why is this the only way you can interact with the world? And I think part of that does come down to the sort of toxic masculine ideal that both of them tried to create the facade of, even though they were both pretty like sensitive guys at their cores. They just didn't know how to be any other version of a man, I guess.
Which is not at all problematic. Like,
no, oh gosh, of course not. I mean, that's a topic for a whole other podcast unto itself. But again, go back to our masculinity episode and listen to some of that, because there's maybe more of that in there. But yeah, Jamie and Jess, I think, are also a pair that I can see. You get the cocky rebel who falls in love with the bubbly girl, or the one of the main girls, and goes on a journey of just trying to become a better guy, try to become the person that is worthy of the admiration of a strong, independent woman like Rory or Keely.
Yeah. And they both, I just think now to like the scene where they're sitting down with Keely at the table and she's like, what happened? And they were just like, well, we got into a fight over who gets to be with you. And it's like, excuse me? And it just makes me think to like the party scene with Rory and Dean. I mean, Jess and Dean fighting. It's just like, you're fighting over a girl. Like, and again, like, it's never okay, but it's just like, there's just, another great example of just like two men fighting over a girl. And I love how Keely is just like, pardon my language, but she's just like, y'all are effing stupid. Like, get out of here with that nonsense. And then Lorelai's over here just like, well done. And I'm just like, one response is great. The other one is just like, oh no.
Yeah. Keely shutting the door on them and then saying, we're fucking idiots, is the correct response. And did you ever know that you're my hero is the wrong response. I mean, Lorelai wasn't the one in that situation they were fighting over, and wasn't given the ultimatum of like, you get to decide who you're with. But like, I think Ted Lasso, just like in general, handled that a lot better, and gave Keely a type of agency that Rory never had. So I quite like that. But while you were talking, I also came up with another Keely, Lorelai, Rebecca, Emily parallel. Rebecca's the bankroller.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I obviously alluded to her wealth, like massive, massive wealth. But just in terms of like Keely's PR firm gets their funding pulled when she breaks up with Jack. I feel like we're going to need a third Ted Lasso episode at some point. Obviously not tonight because it's starting to get really late. But like just talking about some of the storylines we liked and didn't like, because for me, the Keely Jack stuff was fairly problematic. And so Jack pulls the funding on her business, and then Rebecca offers to fund her, and it feels very much like Lorelai every so often getting influxes of cash from her parents, even if she doesn't specifically ask for it. Like she'll need it at certain points, and it sort of undercuts the independent woman storyline a little bit when it's like, ooh, you made some bad decisions or bad investments or bad moves, bad business moves, and now you need someone to bail you out. Like, I mean, that's not what Keely was going to Rebecca for, but, you know, Rebecca in a similar vein is just like, you know, I could easily make that go away for you. Have some money.
Yeah. I will say I hated the Keely Jack storyline, and I don't use that word lightly, but I hated it. You're right. We probably will have to have a third episode on this one of those days.
Yeah, I still have so many more notes. I had like 90
more about it.
Yeah, it's just TLDR thoughts on Jack. I appreciate what they were trying to do with it, but it went nowhere and was problematic because of the power dynamic. So I'm glad they tried to do a story for a bisexual woman, but they fumbled it. Football pun. Yeah. Anyway, I do have one last connector that I think will tickle you and our audience.
Okay.
To me, Higgins is reminiscent of Kirk.
Yes. All day, every day.
He is the comedic relief. He is the one with the running bits. He is the sort of like goofy side character, right hand. But I love that Higgins is taken so seriously, and that like he is very emotionally intelligent and is allowed to have that shine through. He's not just a goofball, but he's a very like capable, in touch kind of person in the end. He's portrayed as such a patsy at the beginning, but ends up being like one of the greatest characters.
Yeah. And I feel like I'm just picturing like Higgins dressing up in like a colonial.
He's doing like the war reenactments.
Yeah.
I could totally see Higgins doing that. That's the thing.
And that's, yeah, because I feel like if Rebecca were to ever ask Higgins to do something like PR related for the club, I feel like Higgins would be like, oh, okay. You know, like, all right, like anything for, you know, to promote ticket sales or whatever, you know, things like that. But he and Kirk, I feel like, are also both just very loyal individuals. You know, kind-hearted, even if in like just the most simplistic of ways, but it doesn't need to go beyond that. Sometimes you can just, you know, you're kind to be kind. You know, Higgins was already like, he was always just very present for anyone that needed him to be, as was Kirk. You know, didn't shy away from, you know, embarrassing situations or doing things that would just benefit others. So, and then we're just always supportive to their friends and the people around them and the community, and the family that they had. So yeah, I agree. I think there are definitely a lot of similarities there.
Yeah. All right. Well, I mean, like I said, I have so many more notes and like so many more thoughts, but it you know, it's not the time or place to talk about them. So I want to leave us off because I have stories to tell. I was in London in August. Originally, I was going to go from the 10th to the 20th, but then I ended up extending my trip a little bit because I heard about something super duper fun. On August 5th, there was something called the Game for Ukraine, which was a charity football match played at Stamford Bridge, which is the home stadium of Chelsea. And it was obviously for the benefit of Ukraine to rebuild schools that had been destroyed in the war with Russia. And so it required changing my travel plans after flights had already been booked, but it was so worth it. So I made a little slideshow of a few things. We're Richmond till we die. We're Richmond. A-B-C, Richmond. I love Isaac and his like various ways of doing the hands in thing. But yeah, so that's on the plane. I watched the first 2 episodes of Ted Lasso. That's all they had for some reason. I was like, why? But I watched them on the way there and the way back. And so I love this like planeception photo where it's like, I'm watching Ted on a plane to London. So that was great. Chelsea Football Club. This was fun. Dan booked us something called a Blue Suite, which had like everything Chelsea, which was hilarious and awesome. And you know, again, super clutch. Thank you, baby. That the hotel was right there at the stadium because I had been traveling at that point for many, many hours. Actually, Dan just left the other day from visiting me. And he like crashed out when he got home. He's like, I have no idea how you did this trip and then went to a football match. And I was like, adrenaline and Stamford effing Bridge. And the fact that the hotel was right there was so great because it meant that like all we had to do was sort of like get me from the airport to the hotel. I could drop the stuff. I could get food. We could go straight to the game. We didn't have to like walk a mile from some other hotel to this place. It was clutch. And then I had the best cauliflower tacos of my life. Shout out Frankie's. I have, you know, like tried making those at home and even my pale imitations totally slap. So like amazing tacos. That's neither here nor there. I just really wanted to shout them out because they were awesome. So on the left there in the middle, not the guy going to take the corner kick, but the guy in the middle, that's Sam Obasanya. That's Toheeb Jamil. He was one of the celebrity players in this charity football match. He played on Team Blue, which was captained by Andrei Shevchenko, who's a Ukrainian footballer. He played with legends like Gianfranco Zola, Michaela Mudryk, although Mudryk is a current Chelsea player. Fabio Cannavaro, Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank, Serginho, Peter Cech, another celebrity named Chelsea Grimes. She's a musician. And their team was coached by Emma Hayes, who was previously the Chelsea women's coach and is now coaching the USA women's world, like international squad. So that was cool. Like from what I gather, obviously I didn't get to like meet him or anything, but from what I gather, he is like such a nice guy in the class act. Like at the end, he was like doing laps of the field and like clapping at people. He was going up in the stands to meet people, to hug them, to sign things. He gave away his shin guards, like just seemingly salt of the earth. I was just like so impressed. I had been away for like 35 hours and I was still just so transfixed by him. And then that second photo on the right is very hard to see, but like you can kind of see like a guy on the sidelines, sort of like near the end of the field, in a blue top and yellow shorts. That's Phil Dunster, I think, if I remember. So Phil played on Team Yellow, team captained by Alexander Zinchenko. And he played with Hero Finds Tiffin, who was, well, he's Rafe Fiennes' nephew and was young Voldemort in Half-Blood Prince.
Mm-hmm.
And that team was coached by Arsene Wenger, who's, I think, a German, like, coaching legend. So quite a lineup there. Completely worth it. Tickets were really cheap because it was a charity game. So it was my first chance to go to a Premier League stadium. Incredible. Loved it. It was, you know, Chelsea. I was dead ass tired. But I was like so there for that game. And then a week later, we went to Richmond. So there's the pub, there's the green with the telephone boxes, the alleyway that you always see Ted walking down. It's an Italian restaurant, I think, actually does the Eat Like Ted biscuits for some reason. I'm not sure why. sells like gangbusters. There's a line out the door for those things. That's the inside of the pub. It's obviously like changed up a little bit, seating wise. At a London Pride. Actually, I had quite a few of those when I was there. And I saw a freaking greyhound the day I was there. I don't know if that's like a thing that's there regularly, whether it's a, you know, like it was done on purpose, or whether it was just like someone had a greyhound. But either way, I was tickled.
Yep.
Yeah, some memorabilia, some photos. Very cool. Football is life. You can't really see it, but on one of those walls it says football is life. Yeah. So just, you see that corner in a lot of different shots. The bench is moved for it, but it's there. Where you always see May giving out beers to the guys and the scarf.
That's another thing too. If we ever do a part 3, like, I love May and I have thoughts on May. I have so many thoughts about May.
Excellent.
Yeah. I need to talk about May more.
Part 3. Let us know if you want it. There's Dan and I in the green, another shot of the pub. Little did I know, Dan had my engagement ring in his bag at that moment, and he proposed later that day. It was our anniversary as well. So, started off the day in Richmond, ended up in Greenwich, which is like way the other side of London. We took the Thames Clipper boat all the way down, and I saw all the like main sites of London for the first time because we only got there on Friday. We had been in Hertfordshire and Essex before, and then we went back to London after that. So it was like my first time seeing the Parliament and Big Ben and the London Eye and the Shard and all of these things. So that was quite a day. Let's just put it that way. There were a lot of swans in the river, and so I was like, hey, swans, Gilmore, obviously. Just a very lovely like river walk. Of course, it was England, so it was cloudy that day. But yeah, that's all not all of my pictures. That's just a taste. Just quick little story time about one of my days in London. I was there for like 2 weeks total. So it was quite an experience. And, if you ever get the chance, I do recommend it. Like watching it back this time, I remember seeing Ted and Beard sitting in there eating the fish and chips. And I was like, that is the Princess Head fish and chips. I recognize the mushy peas and the triple cooked chips. Like it's so bizarre to watch the show now that I've been there. And I'm like, I know these places. I know what they look like. I just loved it. I highly recommend Richmond. It's a beautiful, beautiful neighborhood. It's very posh, very expensive. But I would love to go back and explore that neighborhood a little more. I could spend like a whole week in Richmond just walking around and checking out all the restaurants and shops and stuff because it's just so cute. But yeah.
Yep. Right on.
That's pretty much it, I guess. That's my story. My Ted Lasso story. I have Gilmore Girls stories and now I have Ted Lasso stories. I love it. Oh, speaking of stories, this was an energy drink that we bought when we were in Medina, Ohio, when we went to Sweets and Geeks.
Yeah.
And I also bought the Believe, they're like little candies. They're actually really tasty. This I just got at Shoppers Drug Mart, and same with that. And then I got my little Ted Lasso Funko. But I love changing my background when we like do different things. So it's all my Ted Lasso stuff.
Yeah, I'll have to up my background game one of these days.
Yeah, one of these days. We'll get there.
Yep. But just awesome photos. I've never even been there, but I will just if you're a Ted Lasso fan, go. Like, just go. Just go.
Yeah. Oh, and obviously, t-shirt. Shout out to Jess for her work in prog mess t-shirt, which I wore to at the aforementioned game for Ukraine. I wore this like exact combo to rep when I was there. So,
yeah.
Shout outs.
Yep. We'll have to do a part 3. There's still a lot that we have not said.
Yeah, that'll be like way in the future. It's not on the schedule yet. So like,
yeah,
we're not recording it now. Don't expect it. But
yeah, no, we have quite a few other interesting things coming up in the coming weeks. So just stay tuned.
It's gonna get so good, guys. So good. Next up on the docket, cheating. We're finally doing it. We were gonna record in December, and then we both had like life stuff come up and holidays, and Dan was here. You had travel for family stuff. Dan only just left. And I was like, if I still want to do Ted Lasso for my birthday, we gotta swap the order. But now we're doing it. Next up, 4-part series on cheating.
Because I don't have a lot to say.
I have finished Esther Perel's book. State of Affairs. We're doing it. We're going. There's even an Esther Perel reference in Ted Lasso, which I loved. Maybe I'll bring it back up when we actually talk about Esther Perel some more. But yeah, I have so many thoughts on the infidelity on the show. And obviously, because I think I have like 113 pages of notes right now. 4 parts, y'all. It's coming.
Yep. We will also be having a special guest on the podcast in the coming weeks. We don't know what date that episode will be dropped yet, but we can confirm and say that we will be interviewing the wonderful and lovely Stan Zimmerman in the coming weeks, leading up to the release of his new book, The Girls from Golden to Gilmore. It is being released on February 13th. If you have not ordered a copy of this book yet, please do so. It is a wonderful read, and we are so excited to be just able to have him on and that he's willing to speak with us. So keep an eye on our Instagram, and we will be dropping more details about that soon as it gets closer.
Yeah, and a big thank you to, was it Indigo River, I think is the name?
Indigo River Publishing, yeah.
The publishers for giving us an advanced reading copy, Baby's First Arc, living for it. I'm so excited to read it. I haven't done any reading over the holidays, obviously, because of Dan being here, but I am so excited to dig into it and like make 30 pages of notes to annoy Stan with. So yay, Stan! We love Stan so much. He's a fabulous human being. So stay tuned for that. It's going to be amazing.
Yep, and again, just keep an eye on our Insta. We'll drop more details about that soon. In the meantime, please feel free to go back and watch some of our older episodes. We have a lot of really good content out there for you that we feel like you would enjoy, and just, keep tabs on our YouTube account as we continue to just put forth some really great episodes we feel like you'll enjoy in the future. And just always do those YouTube things for us if you don't mind. Please like this video, subscribe to our channel. All of the support that we get, we are always just so, routinely grateful for, and it really does help us out.
Yeah. Oh, and like one last thing that I think as of the drop of this, FanFest tickets are available. I can't believe we're already hyping up FanFest again, but here we are. It's happening. They're releasing them quite a bit earlier this year. It's like 3 weeks earlier than last year. So January 24th, I think, was when they became available. So go get your FanFest ticket, and we will see you in Guilford, Connecticut, October 18th to 20th.
Mm-hmm.
Last year was incredible. I can't wait to do it again. You will not regret it. It's going to be good. It's going to be good.
Yep, we'll be there. Cast and crew from the show will be there. Names to be announced, but we'll drop links in the video description below where you can get more information about that event and buy tickets as well. So we hope you'll join us for that weekend too.
The more people who buy tickets, the more people they can bring. Remember that. So even if they haven't announced someone that you're excited about, again, don't sleep on it, because they keep announcing names over time. It's all a matter of budget. So it will be worth it. Trust us.
Yep.
All right. And on that note, let's get out of here, and we'll see you next Friday for dinner.
Arrivederci.
Ciao.